I'd like to move straight on to Brother Kwasi Mutema. Brother Mutema is currently the servant political leader of the National Joint Action Committee, NJAC, and like his predecessor, the late Chief Servant Makandel Daga, Brother Mutema has been a strong advocate for national unity. He has worked very closely with the former head of the Institute of Race Relations, Sister Liseli Daga, in terms of sharing ideas for the Institute's programming in relation to addressing the issues of race relations in our society. And his presentation is entitled, Facing the Reality that a Fundamental Understanding of Race Relations is Key to the Nation's Development. Brother Mutema.
Thank you, Sister Lila. Pleasant good afternoon to one and all. Pleasant good afternoon to our listeners on Facebook. The issue of race relations in Trinidad and Tobago, I believe, is very much an issue of the legacy of our colonial experience. Firstly, our national consciousness, our national psyche has very much been shaped by our colonial experience. And as a result, our perspective and experiences of race relations are to a great extent a legacy of colonialism. Secondly, I would say that one cannot speak in terms of building a nation in the absence of national unity. In fact, national unity is very much a prerequisite for national development. And thirdly, most importantly, in dealing with this issue of race relations, there must be total truth and honesty. I think by and large, amongst our population, there is still a great lack of honesty in the society when dealing with such situations. Unless we are brutally honest with ourselves, there will be little or no change to that situation. And in this case, we can quote the great Bob Marley, who said, "The truth offends, but it is not a sin." So I'd say we must be brutally frank and honest with ourselves in confronting this situation. The problem of racial tension that exists between the Indian and the African, I believe, and NJAC strongly believes, it's a politically manufactured one. That is why you see, most of the times you see it rearing its head in a very overt, a very strong way. It's during the period, during elections within our country, national elections. If the two peoples were just left together on their own to live together, there would not be as much problems as we seem to be experiencing. But it is totally manufactured, politically manufactured. I dare say the real problem of racism is the existence of a white power structure that we have had in place within our society since our period of colonialism that has perpetuated that age-old colonial policy of divide and rule. And in order to preserve their power, anytime there's a semblance of the Indians and the Africans coming together in a state of unity to unite among themselves, the response is one of sheer brutality and viciousness by that power structure in order to maintain their power. And we have clear examples of it through our history. One, the Jahaji massacre of 1884, when the Indians and Africans came together to march in that what we call the Jose riots, It was a march in terms of the remembrance of Jose celebrations. And the colonial authorities dealt brutally with that march, which left quite a number of people dead. I think it was 20-something people were left dead and hundreds injured. You had the case of the 1930s and 40s, Tubal Uriah Buzz Butler. Again, the response of the authorities was very harsh. And you had 1970, the Trinidad and Tobago Revolution, which is also known by many as the Black Power Revolution, which was led by the great chief servant, Brother Makanda Dada, where again you saw the total brutality of the establishment when they saw this effort in national unity. In fact, 1970 stands out very much as one of the more significant periods in that effort towards national unity. We can all remember the March to Caroni, that historic March to Caroni on March the 12th, 1970, when African brothers and sisters left Port of Spain to march 28 miles to Caroni and went on to Cuba, right? Hot sun on raw pitch. It wasn't like today where you have fancy highway and all kind of thing, right? And at one point, at the high point, you had that march had more than 10,000 people. So it was a very tangible effort that was made by NJAC and the people to forge that unity. And that was against quite a lot of efforts to prevent the march from taking place. In fact, you had threats being made by Bades Maraj and his henchmen. In fact, when the march passed through Curab, Bades was in front of his house with their guns, their rifles laid down on the lawn to try to intimidate the marchers. There were rumors spread that the Caroni Bridge will be blown up, and they tried to get Brother Daga and the leaders of NJAC to stop the march. They said too many lives would be lost. And the chief servant, in his usual style, insisted that that march must go on. If we have to die in the process, we make that sacrifice to die for unity of our people. And that ended in Cuba in a very historic march. What was the response of the authorities then? Because the Indians had planned a return march to Port of Spain on the 21st of April to express that solidarity and to put the final nail in the coffin of this ethnic division that was being perpetuated by the ruling class, the ruling elites. The authorities got word of that. And what did the government do? A government that was led by the late Eric Williams. They decided to call a state of emergency to prevent that march from taking place on the 21st of April. But I dare say that that event was able to do quite a lot. One, to reveal to the population, to reveal to the world at large that this perception that prevailed of Indians and Africans being divided and not, that to a great extent was destroyed. Also, what it did was to infuse a new sense of purpose within the population to bring about that unity. However, what you had taking place after that, you had efforts by various forces to try to deny the fact of that Indian contribution within the revolution of 1970. Try to deny the fact of the impact of the revolution on the Indian population of 1970. Again, to deliberately create a perception that the Indians were not interested in national unity, that the Indians were averse to unity. It was a deliberate effort. Up to today, it still exists. And therefore, I am saying that fact must be destroyed, and we have to put certain facts on the table. Because one, the Indians were very, very, very accommodated, and not just accommodated, it's stronger than that. In terms, the Indians received those marchers in central Trinidad with open arms. In fact, a phenomenon occurred where at the end of the march, darkness prevailed because darkness met the marchers down there in the night. And what happened is that they could not, many of them could not get transport to come back to Port of Spain. And what happened, many of those Indian people in central Trinidad took in these strangers, these Africans who they didn't know at all, who were supposed to be their enemy. They took them into their homes to sleep in their homes where they had their wives and daughters. People don't do that if they don't trust you. No person who sees someone who they don't trust would allow that person to come into their home to sleep where their wife and daughter is present to put their family at risk. And many of these homes were opened to African brothers and sisters by the Indians in central Trinidad. I want to quote from a document here that was done, I think, by Brother Morena Kwamena of NJAC, where he looked, I quote just at the, I don't know how much more time I have, but the involvement of some of the Indians there, because that myth must be destroyed totally. It says the march at point had some 10,000 persons, okay, where university students, including a number of Indian students, most of whom were active in the student movement, joined the march. And listen to this. They included such notable figures as Surudratan Rambachan. Many would know that name. Pete Bunny Tilak Singh, John Indar, Rajaram Basdeo, Haral Ramjit, and Shama Maharaj. In fact, on the day before the demonstration, both Rambachan and Tilak Singh had gone to Karoni, acting as a sort of advance guard for the demonstration, speaking to people and preparing them for the demonstration. On the day of the march, they offered to guide the demonstrators through Karoni. Basdeo Pandey also spoke on NJAC platform in 1970. It also goes on to say that NJAC's level of involvement had reached a point where sugar workers began to go on strike and to close down sugar factories under the leadership of Makanda Daga and NJAC. What many may not know as well is that at one point, the sugar workers lost confidence in Bades Maraj and asked Brother Makanda Daga to lead their trade union, but he refused. Many say today they felt it was an error, but he refused. And he told them that you must be able to find one of your people, your workers, someone amongst you in the workforce to lead your union.
Thank you.
I will pause there in terms of the quote.
Thank you, Brother Kwasi.
What's one last thing I would like to mention? I may have a minute or two. But
I'll give you another few seconds.
you get a few seconds?
Yes.
I also want to quote Dr. Brinsley Samaru as well from the Trinidad Express 1972. Dr. Samaru said that currently there is the revival of rituals, increased religious fervor, name changing back to Indian names, that is, it's not changing to African names, back to Indian names, and the return to Indian forms of dress. He also said that the Black Power movement, it must also be noted, has made a far more positive impact than most other groups which sought East Indian support. Very instructive. And then Jack did not stop there. He went on 1992 to form what was known as the Caribbean Institute of Race Relations, which then became the Institute of Race Relations. I believe I may have run out of time. So
thank you, Brother Mutema. Looks like we'll have to have another session with you, but thank you so much.